Hey guys, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I learned about tuning on the Lee Oscar anyway. There's a couple things, to me what sets the harmonica apart from other instruments is really the chord sounds. And so I like a lot of the single notes, but I really like being able to play some of the chords because that's what I like the most about the harmonica. But what I was really upset about is when I got my first Lee Oscar and played a chord. To me, I thought that sounds out of tune, and it's kind of disappointing because I thought it was out of tune right out of the box. But I've learned since then that it's not actually because it's out of tune. It's because Lee Oscars tune their harmonicas to equal temperament, or every note is tuned to 440 or 441. And Horner, I read, were typically tuned to just intonation, which is each note is tuned to sound good on the chord. And so when I first read that, I got a $5 blues band Horner, and I first read that and played a chord, and it sounded perfect out of a $5 harmonica. So then I understood that was probably the problem. And since I already had to do some tuning because a couple of my notes had went flat, I actually read people were throwing out their reed plates and buying new ones because the note went flat. I mean, tuning is really actually easy. So I wanted to show you some of the tools because some of the toolkits are real expensive. Some of them have all kinds of things, but I really only got a couple tools. I got some screwdrivers I bought for $1. Then I got a set of feeler gauges. So this set of feeler gauges, this was the most expensive part. I think it's like $5. I just took out the smallest one. This is a .003. And then it's flimsy. It's actually real flimsy, but once you wedge that in between the reed and the reed plate, it's not going to go anywhere. It's firm enough to do whatever you need. And then I did, on one end, I kind of notched it to where, and that's if I got a reed kind of overly bent, I can kind of get that under there and wedge it and bend it the other way. But to talk about the tuning, so that's my first tool, most expensive one. But then Pat Missin is, I looked on his website, he's got some good articles on how to tune harmonicas. And the way he said was the best is what he referred to as buffing. And I'll kind of refer to that as sanding, because that's basically what it is. And he talked about some different buffing pads and different things you get from hobby shops. And I went to some hobby shops and saw some of the buffing pads, and they were kind of expensive, and they weren't really exactly what he was talking about. And so I thought, well, I could probably just use sandpaper. And so what I did is I went out and got a Dell stick. This is 3/16 of an inch. It was 30 cents. Then I got some different grades of sandpaper. This is 400 grit, and it was 80 cents. And now this one feels pretty smooth because it's wet dry. And I had some other 400 grit that seemed a little bit rougher, so you might want to kind of gauge how rough it feels, and you might want to go to a higher grit. But then what I did is I just took a hole punch, punched some holes, and those hole punches were the perfect size to fit on my little stick I cut off, about 5 or 6 inches. And then I angled the head a little bit and glued the sandpaper on there. Now, I got the wet dry sandpaper, that's all that was available. And so it didn't glue real good, and so I had to sand the back because it had a kind of an oily back. So I sanded the back a little bit, used some contact cement, it stuck on there pretty good. And I think I did all my tuning with just this one pad that I created. So that is my tuning tool, my two tuning tools. Just just worked great. And the idea is, but he calls it buffing. You're just very lightly sanding. And this is such a fine grit. It's just, you don't put very much force. That's what I like about it. But you just kind of slowly rub it. It goes really slow. It's hard to overshoot. If you do overshoot, you haven't overshot so much that it's a lot of work to bring it back down. To be honest, I went past quite a bit, and it was kind of a thing where you had to, I just had to work it back and forth because it was the first time I was tuning, so had a lot of luck. I did try with my $5 blues band first. I learned how to do it. This is a good $5 to spend. And then, so a little bit on the tuning. When Pat Missin, you'll have to refer to his article for how he tunes. That's on his site. But he describes a couple different ways, and equal temperament is basically you're just going to tune every note with the tuner to 440 or whatever key you want to tune that to. Now, just intonation is where you're going to tune every note, not quite perfect, but either flat or sharp so it sounds good with the one next to it. And there's some drawbacks and good things about both ways. But I like to be able to play straight harp and be in tune with every note. And so I like to have the just intonation that comes on the lead Oscar. But I also like to have it, I'd at least like to have my blow and draw chord, just and have that sound good. And so my thought was, I'll do equal temperament from the floor, blow on, and then I'll do just intonation from the, I guess, 3 draw down. And then that'll give me my 2 chords that I like, and then the rest will be in equal temperament. Now when I first did this, I had to flat the 2 draw quite a bit. And it's to the point where it sounded out of tune if I was playing with something in that key in cross harp or something. So then I had to go back and I thought, okay, well that's not the right way to do it. I got to have my 4 blow and my 2 draw have to be in perfect tune. And then I got to kind of do my just intonation around those. And so that's what I did. I just tuned those, tuned everything, and then basically I wasn't going to touch anything from the 4 up or the 2 draw. And so that really only left me with, I started by first matching the 1 draw, and I did this on the blow and the draw. And so I matched the 1 draw and the 4 draw together. That's first. Now that's a little bit tricky because when you play just the 1 draw, you're moving more air than if you're playing all 4 of them. And so to tune it to the chord, you have to play those 2 at the same time. And you want those to play. Pat Missin calls it beating. It'll start to sound just out of tune, and so you want to really play those 2 together. Is the only way, and it takes a little bit of working back and forth because as you play, like I said, all 4 notes, you get you're getting less draw on the 1 or on all the notes, and so that makes a difference because the harder you draw on a note, the more flat it goes. And so but then, so I'm tuning the 1 and the 4 together, and then he says to tune the 1 and the 3 next. And then once you tune the 1 and the 3, now Pat Missin talks about you tune the 1 and the 3 together, and then you tune the 2 to the 3. And so, since I didn't want to tune the 2 to the 3, I didn't want to affect that any, I did exactly the opposite. I just tuned the 1 and the 3 together, and then when I played the 2 and the 3 draw together, I kind of still tunes the 3 draw to the 2. And I don't think it's perfect, just intonation, but it's really close enough that you can get by with it. There's a little bit of beating, and there's some overtones that I can hear, but they really do get drowned out when you're playing the full chord. And it sounds a lot better. Didn't make a previous video, but this is a B flat Lee Oscars that's stock. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't sound quite as bad as my C harmonica sounded pretty bad right out of the box. And so that's pretty much it. I really like it. I have my draw and blow chord. And then I can, if I'm playing in cross harp, I can incorporate those chords and they're going to sound good.